Look at his stack and shed. Oh, we got a block punt. Simeon with the ball. Look at him weaving in and out of traffic. There goes our dude. That's a Buckeye, baby. That's a big old Buckeye right there. Heading down to the end zone.
I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships.
The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you.
And welcome into Juck on Bucks. Appreciate you so much for joining me for a Boom Pod Thursday as the Buckeyes have landed another commitment in the class of 2026, Simeon Caldwell. Simeon Caldwell now joins his teammate at high school from the Bulls School in Jacksonville, Corbin Fordham, who's a tight end committed in the class of 2026. And boy, things just keep getting better as the momentum really building in this class of 2026, despite some negative news yesterday. We come right back at it with another commit and some more coming. I think another one this weekend. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, Simeon Caldwell, who linebacker, he is rated as the number 5 linebacker in the country by 247. Safety, he's rated as the number 7 safety in the country at On 3. Where does he project? Well, Matt Guerrieri, gosh, that name. Matt Guerrieri was recruiting him. He's the lead recruiter in this, and he is the safeties coach. Is it possible this guy outgrows safety? Absolutely. There's a potential for him to be on a Sonny Styles track where he starts as a safety and ends up as a linebacker, because you look at his frame, he's 6'3", he's really broad, he's got long arms, and you can just see like, okay, I can see that guy putting on 30 pounds of mass throughout his college career. Like, that's kind of what happens to most guys at Ohio State when they're built like that coming in. So we don't know, but I asked him a couple months ago, does he have a preference? He said no, wherever I fit in the scheme. And we saw certain schools recruiting him as a linebacker, certain schools recruiting him as a safety. I think Ohio State went into this pretty open with him. Look, we're going to bring you in as a safety, and we'll see what works out best for you, what you like best, where we want you best. And Matt Guerrieri leading the recruitment here, obviously another huge win for Matt Guerrieri, as he is another top 100 kid, and he joins Blaine Bradford, committed in this class, the number 1 safety. Simeon Caldwell from a great family, coming from a great school that develops and puts a lot of guys into D1 football. And of course, Simeon Caldwell, also the nephew of cornerback coach Tim Walton, which led many to believe throughout this entire thing, this was a slam dunk for the Buckeyes. Simeon was adamant throughout this recruitment that that would not be the case. He was treating Ohio State with no special advantages because of Uncle Tim. And since he's made his decision, he told On 3 regarding that, knowing that he, Uncle Tim, is there, that he has my best interest is important, but without my connection to Coach Walton, Ohio State was still the right place for me. The academics, the football team, the community, and the relationships are all there at Ohio State. This was always a big uphill climb in my estimation for the others on this list, and that's Notre Dame, Ohio State, USC, and Miami were his final 4, scheduled officials to all 4 of those. Kind of an odd pairing when you got Notre Dame and Ohio State mixed in with SC and Miami, just the way that those two, I don't know, they recruit in a little bit different ways, right? Miami and USC right now pumping money into it. Notre Dame, Ohio State, not really known for that. There is some pessimism about recruiting and about commitments from out of state right now, and we're going to get to that. But first, I want to show you a little bit of what Simeon looks like on the field. All right, Simeon Caldwell from the Bulls School. What, you just not going to block him? Yeah, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem against the Bulls School with Simeon Caldwell. Now we're going to block him. Look at his stack and shed. Oh, we got a block punt. Simeon with the ball. Look at him weaving in and out of traffic. There goes our dude. That's a Buckeye, baby. That's a big old Buckeye right there. Heading down to the end zone. And look at this celebration, my guy. And Simeon up on the line again. Here we go. What's my responsibility? Both y'all are my responsibility, and you still can't get by me. Do we got a field goal attempt here? We got a field goal attempt. Block field goal attempt by Simeon. And Bulls got the ball. We're rumbling, stumbling, bumbling. That's a special teams touchdown. And we got Simeon lined up at outside linebacker again. That wide receiver going to try to block him. No chance. And another TFL for Simeon. And we're going to try him in the passing game. Simeon going to track that slot receiver very well, and you just can't get around that size and aggression from Simeon. We're going to line our guy up on the line of scrimmage again here. The ball goes the other way. Simeon going to track that puppy down. Look at him close that ground for 20 yards down the field, asking his guys, where y'all at? Try him again in the passing game. Getting handsy like an IGB. You got to love it. And Simeon up on the line again. And he's going to have a free run at the quarterback. You are going to want to block the kid going to Ohio State. And it's not working for him, running inside. They're going to head outside, try to get around Simeon. That's a bad idea, too. And we got Simeon playing up again. Why play him back when he can just eat you up from the line of scrimmage? Let's get one more, as I think we got the idea here. Look how wide he is when he spread those arms. Great base, the agility. I mean, the guy's got it. The guy's got it. That's just what it is. So, as you can see, plays a lot of linebacker, does a lot of linebacker stuff. Is he going to remain in the safeties room? Will he eventually be with James Laurinaitis? Who knows? Great football player, good problem to have, because there's a whole lot of guys really on this roster when we look at the Riley Pettijohn, TJ Alford, who both in their senior years of high school were 210-ish pounds. They're now 230. You look at Fahim Delane, who honestly on the football field looked and played very similar to those two. He's a safety. And right now, I don't know what he weighs, but I'd guess about 210. And if you wanted to pack mass on him, you could. And the same thing will be for Simeon Caldwell. He's 6'3" with a huge frame. If you want to pack mass on him, you can. If you want to move him, or if you want to keep him at safety, you ride with it until he outgrows it, I guess, which is kind of similar to what they were doing with Sonny Styles. But the bottom line is great athletes, instinctual football players, and great young guys, all four of them. But like I said in the show this morning, we had a guy talking about guys from out of state committing does not mean anything to him, doesn't move him in a bit. And the conversation was in regards to Blaine Bradford, the number one safety in the country who's out of Louisiana, who committed earlier. And I think Blaine Bradford ends up sticking. I think Simeon Caldwell, with no hesitation at all, ends up sticking a little bit for Bradford, but not much. And I went back and looked at the status of the 2025 commits in that class during the cycle, the ones who were still taking their visits. And I had 8 of them as guys who were from out of state that committed to Ohio State that were still taking visits. 50% of them ended up signing elsewhere. Now, when you listen to something like this from Simeon Caldwell, Ohio State is the best program in the country. They are BIA for a reason, and it's the best place for me and my family. At Ohio State, it is about family. It's about the team, the brotherhood. They care about life after football there. It is about Ohio State having everything that I'm looking for in a school. This is a very intelligent young guy who clearly has his priorities set, knows what he wants, did his due diligence in his recruiting process, even though he favored Ohio State all along, in my opinion. A very good family, and I'll keep referencing it, and I think that I'll continue to reference it as we move forward until it burns me. But what we try to do in recruiting, those of us who follow it, is we try to look for trends and signs. And right now, if we're looking for trends and signs of how to predict how 26 is going to go, and we're looking at 25, there are a couple of things that stand out to me amongst the guys who committed and ultimately flipped out of the class. 1, impulsivity. And 2, when we look at the families in that class, when we look at the Sanchez family, the Pettijohn family, those two superstar sons, slightly different recruitments, but all worked out kind of the same. Due diligence, made your commitment, solid to your commitment, had their priorities in order, got what they were looking for, got their information, made their decision. And Simeon Caldwell feels very similar to me in that aspect. So does Blaine Bradford. I'll tell you who didn't feel that way. 3 out of 4 of the guys who decommitted in one area or the other. Zahir Mathis, it almost felt like people were using that poor kid as a pawn. That decision was very early and pretty unexpected. Didn't feel like a well thought out due diligence decision. Javon Boggs, one of the very first to commit in the class, who ended up decommitting. Never felt like that at all. He didn't really carry himself on social media like we're accustomed to from guys on this team, from Brian Hartline's room, or, just in general. His mom was out there fighting in the Twitter streets. Like, it just didn't really feel the same. Naeem Offord had both parents out there fighting in the streets. Nothing wrong with that. But when he committed, that was also, I don't want to say impulsive, but he didn't really do his due diligence with everybody around the country that he wanted to visit and see until after he committed to Ohio State, which was kind of like, okay, Naeem Offord on the radar, comes for a visit, and then the very next week or maybe 2 weeks later, he's back up with all of his family, surprise commits. His dad didn't even know he was going to commit while he was in Ryan Day's office. So some impulsivity there. It wasn't a long process. Due diligence wasn't done. And that's why when I look at these guys that decommitted, I'm seeing a pattern here. And we'll keep out for that pattern, ones that match that up in this class. I'm sure there will be one or two. But when we look at the guys that stuck, who visited elsewhere, they just, TJ Alford, who went and visited elsewhere, but he was so adamant. Every interview he did, he said it on here with me. He wanted to make sure everybody knew. I talked to the coaches and they were okay. It's just a backup plan should things change at Ohio State. Like the guys that were out there taking visits elsewhere, Jarquez Carter, similar situation. They wanted to make sure that everybody knew, like, they were Buckeyes. They're just looking for, backup alternatives if they need it. And it just felt different. It felt different than a couple of guys that ended up decommitting, like Boggs, like Zahir, like Naeem Offord. So looking for trends, I don't see any of those trends in Simeon Caldwell or Blaine Bradford, but I do think it's interesting to try to predict and see how these goes. We'll certainly lose guys in this class. There's no doubt. I'm going to try and predict who they are. Caldwell also had to say meeting Coach Matt Patricia in person was a big key for him. Came off as one of the smartest football coaches he's ever been around. And Simeon said they went over scheme and the way he sees things, knowing what's inside his brain is amazing. Super Bowl, was in the league for a long time. The environment, comfortable vibe, and it's a happy place. Every time I'm there, it just feels different than other schools. They know how to have fun and keep a happy vibe, and they're champs. And that's the Ryan Day difference right there. And that's why this moment in time, I have him ranked as the number one coach in all of college football. So another big win for Matt Guerrieri, who, after getting his top target last year, Fahim Delane, has now secured the commitment of 2 top 10 safeties in the country in Blaine Bradford and Simeon Caldwell. Of course, he's got to get them signed. Now the conversation all shifts from the safety perspective towards the man who's in town this weekend, and that's Bralan Womack out of Mississippi, the number 1 or number 2 safety with Blaine Bradford, depending on where you look. And should they be able to land Bralan Womack, this obviously on paper, the best safety class in history, at least for Ohio State, but the 1 and the 2 safety and a top 10 safety as a kicker, I don't know how you beat that. But I don't know how feasible it is anymore to land Bralan. Like, if you're looking at it from the pessimistic point of view, the first thing I would think of is the money situation. When we're talking about the other guys who are high on his list, you've got Florida, Auburn, and Texas A&M. Now, we know how Florida operates. Auburn operates to the extreme in that direction, as does Texas A&M. They recruit very differently than Ohio State. They pay very differently for recruits than Ohio State. And right now, let's take it back 3 weeks ago. I said right here, like, I think Ohio State will go to the mattresses for Bralan Womack. There are a couple guys that they're willing to do that. If I'm looking at this from a pessimistic point of view, I'm saying, does that change now that you've got Blaine Bradford and Simeon Caldwell? Is it too much money now to invest in one position when you need to spread it out amongst the team? I don't know. We don't know the numbers of the budget that they're working with in this cycle. We just don't know how they're going to prioritize that money. And we also don't know at what point does Auburn and Texas A&M just make a push so heavy that it's an offer that none of us would be able to turn down. Just life-changing money. And you can look at yourself and say, if it doesn't work out, I can leave. But man, that as a signing bonus, I don't know how I say no to that. Like, there are offers that some schools are willing to make for guys. And it's just a matter of, are they going to make one of those to Bralan? Is he going to take it? I don't know. So if I'm looking at it from the pessimistic point of view, I'm saying that. If I'm looking at it from the optimistic point of view, Bralan Womack is in town this weekend. And that is perfect timing for him to be in town. Obviously, now that they can sit down with Bralan and say, look, we've got Bradford in the class. We've got Simeon in the class. here's our plan for the three of you. And you got some smart guys with Matt Patricia making a real difference, which is something we've not seen from a defensive coordinator in recruiting in a while. So that's really good. So they can sit down with Bralan, tell him the plan. What I do know is Bralan loves Ohio State. If this was 5 years ago, I don't think that I'm not fearing any of these Auburn, Florida A&M. Like, Bralan's a Buckeye, but it's not 5 years ago. But he loves Ohio State. You know, Storm Miller and Adam Guthrie grew up Buckeye fans. You know, like, it happens. But from these out-of-state guys, I've talked to a lot of them. A lot of them say they're Ohio State fans. Womack's always been different. The guy loves Ohio State since the day he got his offer. And, you know, it's not speculation. Like, this dude loves Ohio State. So if I'm looking at it from the optimistic point of view, I'm banking on that and the fact that he is in town this weekend. If I'm being pessimistic, this is one that could come down to money, because with Bradford off the board, Caldwell off the board, that increases his value, right? There's one less option everybody else has. So I don't know. At any rate, if you don't get Bralan Womack and you end up with Donovan Webb out of Texas, who I think is an awesome safety, you're still looking at a ridiculous safety class. But would sure love Womack. Anyway, I'm rambling off topic. The point of this was about Simeon Caldwell, who is an absolute dog. Hope you enjoyed that film. I'll talk to you guys soon. Juck and Bucks out.